My son said dinner had been canceled, but when I got there, I found them eating without me. My name is Esther, and I just turned 58 years old. I've been a widow for 15 years now, raising my son Aaron on my own since he was 10. Yesterday was supposed to be special, a birthday dinner at a fancy restaurant. But when Aaron called to cancel, claiming there was a problem at the venue, something felt off. I decided to go to the restaurant anyway just to reschedule. That's when I saw them, my son, his wife, and her parents, all laughing and dining without me, using my birthday gift to him to pay for it all. Before I share what happened next, let me know where you're watching from in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe to hear how one phone call changed everything that night. I've worked at Harmony Insurance for 30 years now, starting just after my husband Michael passed away from a sudden heart attack. We were high school sweethearts, married for 20 wonderful years before I became a widow at 43. Michael was the love of my life, but he didn't leave us with much. The life insurance barely covered the funeral expenses and a few months of mortgage payments. I found myself alone with a 10-year-old son and bills that wouldn't stop coming. Those early years were the hardest. During the day, I worked at Harmony Insurance as a claims processor. At night and on weekends, I picked up shifts waiting tables at Rosie's Diner. Aaron would sit in a corner booth doing homework while I served customers until closing time. The manager, an older woman named Dorothy, would slip him chocolate milkshakes when she thought I wasn't looking. We scraped by month to month, but Aaron never went hungry, and our small 2-bedroom home stayed warm in the winter. Despite the financial struggles, Aaron and I were incredibly close. Every Sunday was our special day together. We'd make pancakes shaped like animals, go to the local park, and sometimes splurge on a movie if there was anything left from my tips that week. I still remember how his face would light up when the previews started, small hands diving into our shared popcorn bucket. "Mom," he'd whisper in the darkness of the theater, "when I grow up, I'm going to buy you a giant house with a swimming pool and a movie theater inside." I'd smile and squeeze his hand. "I don't need a giant house, sweetheart. I just need you." As Aaron entered his teenage years, he remained focused and driven. While other parents complained about rebellion and attitude problems, I watched my son maintain straight A's and join the debate team. He talked about becoming a lawyer from the age of 14, fascinated by a court show we used to watch together. I worked extra shifts and put away a little each month for his college fund. It wasn't much, but combined with scholarships and student loans, it was enough to get him into State University's pre-law program. Those college years were lean ones. I cut back on everything, even skipped meals sometimes, to make sure Aaron had textbook money and enough for his apartment share near campus. I never told him how tight things were. Whenever he called, I'd say everything was fine, even on nights when I was calculating how to stretch $20 for a week of groceries. A mother protects her children from worries, especially when they're working so hard for a better future. Aaron graduated with honors and got accepted to one of the top law schools in the country. I was so proud watching him walk across that stage in his cap and gown that tears streamed down my face. I sold my wedding ring to help with his first semester expenses. Michael would have wanted that. He always said Aaron would change the world someday. Law school was even more expensive, but Aaron got a partial scholarship and took out loans for the rest. He worked part-time at a law library and shared an apartment with 3 other students. Every Sunday, he'd still call me without fail, telling me about his classes and professors. I saved every extra penny to visit him once a year, sleeping on his lumpy couch and cooking a week's worth of meals that he could freeze. When Aaron passed the bar exam on his first try, I threw him a small party at our house with a few family friends. He was 26, then handsome and confident in his new suit. The following week, he accepted a position at Fulton & Palmer, a prestigious law firm downtown. His starting salary was more than I'd ever made in my life. I remember hugging him tightly, thinking about all those double shifts and lean years. It had all been worth it. Over the next 6 years, Aaron's career flourished. He specialized in corporate law and quickly became known for his sharp mind and work ethic. He was made junior partner by 30, the youngest in the firm's history. I watched from the sidelines, bursting with pride, but still living in our modest home, still working the same job at Harmony Insurance. Aaron would occasionally offer financial help, but I usually refused. My son had earned his success, and I didn't want to be a burden. The changes began gradually when Aaron met Amanda at a charity gala his firm was sponsoring. She was beautiful, sophisticated, and came from the wealthy Blackwood family who owned a chain of high-end restaurants across the state. Their courtship was a whirlwind. Within 6 months, they were engaged, and suddenly my down-to-earth son was talking about wine pairings and country clubs. "You'll love her, Mom," Aaron assured me over the phone. "She's incredible, so smart and well-connected. She's helping me network with some of the top executives in the city." I met Amanda a few weeks later at a restaurant that required reservations a month in advance. She air-kissed my cheeks and complimented my vintage dress, though I'd bought it new just for the occasion from the nicest department store I could afford. Throughout dinner, she talked about her travels through Europe, her father's restaurant empire, and the wedding planner they'd already hired. Aaron watched her with adoring eyes, laughing at her jokes and squeezing her hand across the table. "What do you do again, Esther?" Amanda asked while examining her manicure. "I'm a claims processor at an insurance company," I replied. "I've been there 30 years now." "How quaint," she said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Job loyalty is so rare these days." The wedding was held at the Blackwood Estate, a sprawling property with manicured gardens and a view of the lake. I felt out of place among the guests in designer clothing and expensive jewelry. The Blackwood family had invited over 300 people, most of whom I'd never met. Aaron had changed the guest list I'd given him, excluding several of my longtime friends and coworkers, because they wouldn't fit the aesthetic. I wore a pale blue dress I'd saved for months to buy my only strand of pearls that had belonged to my mother, and shoes that pinched my feet but matched perfectly. As mother of the groom, I was seated at a prominent table, but surrounded by Amanda's distant relatives who barely acknowledged me. During the reception, I caught only glimpses of Aaron as he circulated among the Blackwood family's influential friends. After the wedding, Aaron and Amanda moved into a luxury condo downtown, paid for largely by her parents as a wedding gift. I visited once for a housewarming dinner, bringing a handmade quilt as a gift. Amanda thanked me politely, but later I noticed it had been placed in a closet. My son's home bore no traces of his past life. No photos of our small house, no mementos from our Sunday adventures, not even the vintage baseball signed by his favorite player that I'd given him for his 16th birthday. Our weekly Sunday calls became monthly, then sporadic. Aaron was always swamped with cases or networking with Amanda's family. When we did speak, he would rush through the conversation often, with Amanda's voice audible in the background, reminding him of another engagement. I noticed the changes in my son's language, his interests, even his laugh, which became more restrained, less genuine. The Aaron I raised had been replaced by someone who discussed stock portfolios and country club memberships. On the rare occasions when we met in person, usually at a restaurant of Amanda's choosing, he would check his watch frequently and take calls during our meal. "You should update your wardrobe, Mom," he suggested during one such lunch. "Amanda knows a great personal shopper who could help you find something more current." I smiled and changed the subject, but the comment stung. I'd never cared much about fashion, but I'd always been neat and presentable. Now apparently I wasn't good enough as I was. Invitations to holidays dwindled. The first Thanksgiving after the wedding, I received a call 2 days before. "Change of plans, Mom," Aaron said, his voice distant. "We're going to Aspen with Amanda's family. Their tradition, you know how it is." I spent that Thanksgiving alone watching old movies and trying not to remember all the years I'd prepared turkey and all the trimmings for just the two of us, making those small memories that now seemed to mean nothing to my son. Christmas was similar. A brief visit on December 23rd, where Aaron presented me with an expensive handbag that Amanda had clearly selected before they jetted off to the Blackwoods winter home. The following year, I received a gift card in the mail with a pre-printed card signed by both of them. I kept telling myself this was normal, that children grow up and build their own lives. But in my heart, I knew this was different. Aaron wasn't just busy. He was distancing himself deliberately. The son who once promised to buy me a house with a pool now seemed embarrassed by my modest lifestyle and career. Each canceled plan, each rushed phone call felt like another small rejection. But despite everything, I held on to hope that my real son was still in there somewhere, beneath the polished exterior and new vocabulary. It was a rainy Tuesday afternoon when I first met Amanda's family. Aaron had been dating her for about 3 months, and they invited me to Sunday brunch at the original Blackwood restaurant downtown. I remember feeling nervous wearing my best pantsuit and the pearl earrings Michael had given me for our 15th anniversary. I wanted so badly to make a good impression on the family of the woman my son clearly adored. The Blackwood family arrived 15 minutes late. Richard Blackwood, Amanda's father, barely glanced at me while checking his stock portfolio on his phone. Diana Blackwood, her mother, looked me up and down before offering a limp handshake and a practiced smile. "So, you're Aaron's mother," Diana said, her tone suggesting surprise. "Amanda mentioned you work in insurance, was it?" "Yes, I'm a claims processor at Harmony Insurance," I replied warmly. "I've been with them for 3 decades now." Diana exchanged a glance with her husband. "How dedicated." Throughout brunch, the conversation revolved around topics that excluded me. Charity galas I hadn't attended, people I didn't know, vacations to places I'd never been. Whenever I tried to join in with a question or comment, Richard would talk over me, or Diana would subtly shift the conversation back to their social circle. Aaron, who normally would have included me, or at least acknowledged the rudeness, sat silently by Amanda's side, nodding along, as if he'd been part of this world his entire life. I watched my son laugh at Richard's mildly racist joke about their gardener, something the Aaron I raised would never have found amusing. "Esther, do you play golf?" Richard asked suddenly, interrupting my thoughts. "No, I've never had the opportunity to learn," I answered honestly. "Pity," he replied. "It's where all the real business connections happen. I suppose in your line of work, networking isn't as crucial." I saw Amanda squeeze Aaron's hand under the table, both of them smiling at her father's comment. That was the first moment I truly felt the gulf widening between my son and me. As the months passed and Aaron's relationship with Amanda grew serious, these interactions became more frequent and more painful. At their engagement party, held at the Blackwood Country Club, Diana cornered me by the hors d'oeuvres table. "Aaron tells us you made quite the sacrifice raising him alone," she said, sipping champagne. "We're just so pleased he was able to rise above his humble beginnings." I smiled politely, though my chest tightened. "I'm very proud of who he's become." "Yes, well, Amanda has really helped refine him, hasn't she? His table manners were a bit casual when they first met, but now look at him." She nodded toward my son, who was chatting with a group of Amanda's friends, holding his wine glass exactly as they did, laughing at precisely the right moments. These subtle digs continued through every interaction. The Blackwoods had a talent for insults disguised as observations, or even compliments. Richard would remark on how impressive it was that I'd managed to help Aaron get through school on such a limited income. Diana would praise my simple but clean apartment when she deigned to visit once before the wedding. After Aaron and Amanda married, the dynamic shifted further. The newlyweds would occasionally invite me to dinner at their condo or at one of the Blackwood restaurants. Each time I noticed Aaron adopting more of their mannerisms, their vocabulary, their subtle condescension. "Mom, you really should consider a retirement community," he said during one such dinner about 6 months after the wedding. "They have some very nice ones with activities. You might meet people more in your age group." I was only 56 at the time, hardly ready for retirement, let alone a retirement community. "I'm happy in my home, Aaron," I replied. "And I have plenty of friends." Amanda exchanged a look with him. "But they're all work friends, aren't they, Esther? It might be nice to expand your social circle beyond Harmony Insurance." The pattern continued with holiday gatherings. At Thanksgiving dinner at the Blackwoods the following year, I brought my traditional cranberry sauce made from my grandmother's recipe. Diana placed it far down the table, separate from the catered spread. No one took any, not even Aaron, who had once claimed it wasn't Thanksgiving without it. Christmas at their condo was no better. I spent hours selecting thoughtful gifts. A beautiful leather-bound journal for Aaron, who used to love writing, and a handcrafted scarf for Amanda that I'd saved up for. They opened them with polite thanks, then set them aside. In return, they gave me an envelope containing a gift certificate for a department store makeover. "We thought you might enjoy updating your look," Amanda explained as Aaron nodded encouragingly. I thanked them, swallowing my hurt. The certificate remained unused in my drawer. With each interaction, I felt Aaron slipping further away. His calls became less frequent, often coming when he was in the car alone driving between appointments. Our conversations were superficial. He rarely asked about my life anymore, and when I asked about his work or interests, the answers were brief and dismissive. "It's complicated, Mom. Legal stuff you wouldn't understand. Just busy with the usual. Hey, I've got another call coming in. Important client. I'll call you next week, okay?" But next week would often stretch to next month. Birthday cards arrived with just his signature clearly chosen and sent by Amanda. Invitations to dinner would be canceled last minute for vague reasons. When we did meet, Aaron would check his phone constantly, his attention elsewhere. I tried to bridge the gap to understand his new world. I read books about wine after hearing him discuss vintages. I researched the law firms he mentioned competing with. I even tried to engage Amanda in conversation about her family's restaurants, asking about the business aspects I thought might interest her. "Oh, Esther," she laughed during one such attempt. "You don't need to worry your head about business matters. It's all very complex." I watched my son nod in agreement with her, as if I couldn't possibly comprehend their world. This from the boy who'd sat at our kitchen table while I balanced checkbooks and calculated how to stretch every dollar, the boy who'd seen me negotiate with bill collectors and budget for his college textbooks. The final straw came at a dinner party they hosted for Amanda's birthday. I'd been invited seemingly as an afterthought, with Aaron calling just 2 days before. "It's semi-formal," he said. "Do you have something appropriate to wear?" I assured him I did, though it meant spending money I couldn't really spare on a new dress. I arrived at their condo with a small gift, a silver bracelet I'd noticed Amanda admiring in a store window months earlier. I'd put it on layaway and made payments for weeks. The evening was filled with Amanda's friends and family, all discussing their recent European vacations and renovation plans for summer homes. I sat quietly smiling when appropriate, trying to find a moment to connect with my son. Finally, I approached him near the bar. "The party's lovely, Aaron. Amanda looks beautiful tonight." "Thanks, Mom," he said, glancing over my shoulder, as if looking for someone more interesting to talk to. "I was hoping we could have lunch next week, just the two of us," I suggested, "like our old Sunday tradition." His expression flickered, something like guilt quickly replaced by detachment. "I don't think I can commit right now. Work is crazy, and Amanda and I might be looking at properties in the Hamptons next weekend." Before I could respond, Diana Blackwood appeared, linking her arm through Aaron's. "Darling, the Johnsons just arrived. You simply must come tell them about that case you won last month." As they walked away, I heard Diana murmur, "Was she bothering you? You know you don't have to entertain her all evening." Aaron didn't contradict her. He didn't defend me. He just laughed softly and allowed himself to be led away, leaving me standing alone. Later that evening, as guests began to depart, I overheard Amanda and her mother in the kitchen. "I don't know why you insisted on inviting her," Diana said. "She doesn't exactly fit with your other guests." "Aaron felt obligated," Amanda replied. "Family duty and all that. Anyway, she usually leaves early. She can't keep up with the conversation." I slipped away before they could see me making a quiet exit without saying goodbye. Aaron didn't call to check if I'd gotten home safely. He didn't call the next day to thank me for coming. In fact, he didn't call at all for 3 weeks, and when he did, there was no mention of the party or how I'd left. That was when I truly began to understand. My son was ashamed of me. The woman who had given up everything to raise him, who had gone hungry so he could eat, who had worked 2 jobs to put him through college. I was now an embarrassment to be tolerated occasionally and avoided when possible. The realization broke my heart, but I still clung to hope. I told myself that this was a phase, that the real Aaron was still in there somewhere, that eventually he would remember who he was and where he came from. I kept making myself available, kept leaving voicemails on birthdays and holidays, kept setting a place for him at my table on the off chance he might stop by. But with each passing month, that hope grew dimmer, and the pain of rejection dug deeper into my heart. I'd been looking forward to my 58th birthday for weeks. Not because I enjoy getting older, who does? But because Aaron had called out of the blue in early April with an invitation that had rekindled my hope. "Mom, I want to take you out for your birthday next month," he said, his voice warmer than it had been in years. "Dinner at Blackwood's downtown, the VIP section." I was so surprised that for a moment I couldn't speak. After months of canceled plans and unanswered calls, this felt like a breakthrough. "That sounds wonderful," I finally managed to say. "I'd love that." "Great, May 12th at 7. I've already made the reservation." The fact that he remembered my birthday without prompting seemed like a positive sign. Maybe he was finally breaking free from Amanda's influence. Maybe he was starting to remember our relationship before all of this. For the next 3 weeks, I allowed myself to hope again. I bought a new dress, navy blue, with a modest neckline, elegant, but not too fancy. I splurged on having my hair done the morning of my birthday, adding some subtle highlights that the stylist assured me took years off my appearance. I even treated myself to a manicure, something I rarely indulged in. As I got ready that evening, I felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. In my mind, this dinner represented a chance to reconnect with my son, to perhaps begin rebuilding our relationship. I took extra care with my makeup, wore the pearl necklace that had been my mother's, and spritzed on the perfume Aaron had given me years ago. At 4:30 p.m., just as I was putting the finishing touches on my outfit, my phone rang. Aaron's name flashed on the screen. "Hi, sweetie," I answered, trying to keep the eagerness from my voice. "I'm looking forward to dinner tonight." There was a slight pause before Aaron spoke. "Yeah, about that, Mom. I'm really sorry, but we're going to have to cancel." My heart sank. "Oh, is everything okay?" "There's been some issue at the restaurant," he said, his voice oddly flat. "A plumbing problem or something. They've had to close for the evening." "That's strange," I said. I hadn't heard anything about that. I'd driven past Blackwoods just yesterday, and everything had seemed normal. "Yeah, it just happened this afternoon. Really sudden." Aaron cleared his throat. "We'll reschedule, okay? Maybe next week." I tried to hide my disappointment. "Of course I understand. These things happen." "Great. Sorry again. I've got to run. Client calling on the other line. Happy birthday, Mom." He hung up before I could respond, before I could even thank him for the birthday wishes. I sat on the edge of my bed, still fully dressed for an evening out, staring at my phone. Something about the call felt wrong. Aaron's voice had lacked genuine regret, and his explanation seemed hasty, almost rehearsed. After a few minutes of reflection, I made a decision. I would go to the restaurant anyway, just to confirm the situation. If there truly was a plumbing issue, I could suggest an alternative place for dinner. Maybe Aaron and I could still salvage the evening. It wasn't really about the birthday celebration anymore. It was about not spending another birthday alone, about having just a few hours with my son. I'd taken the afternoon off work, gotten all dressed up. I wasn't ready to simply go home and heat up a frozen dinner. I grabbed my purse, the expensive one Aaron and Amanda had given me last Christmas, still the nicest thing I owned, and headed to my car. The drive to Blackwoods took about 20 minutes, during which I rehearsed what I'd say if I ran into Aaron. I didn't want to seem like I was checking up on him or doubting his word. I could simply say I'd come to personally reschedule the reservation. As I parked across from the restaurant, I immediately noticed something odd. The parking lot was full, and customers were entering and exiting through the main doors. There was no sign indicating closure, no service vehicles that would suggest plumbing repairs. A knot formed in my stomach as I approached the restaurant. Through the large windows, I could see that the dining area was busy, tables filled with people enjoying their meals. I hesitated at the entrance, suddenly unsure. Had Aaron been misinformed, or was something else going on? Taking a deep breath, I pushed open the heavy wooden door and approached the hostess stand. A young woman in a black dress greeted me with a professional smile. "Good evening. Welcome to Blackwoods. Do you have a reservation? Actually, I was told there was some kind of plumbing issue and that the restaurant was closed tonight, I said carefully. The hostess looked confused. No, ma'am, we're fully operational. No issues at all today. I see. My voice sounded strange to my own ears. My son mentioned he had a reservation for tonight that had to be canceled, under the name Aaron Winters. She checked her tablet, scrolling through what I assumed was the reservation list. I don't see any reservation under that name, and we haven't canceled any reservations today. What about the VIP section? I asked, the knot in my stomach tightening. The VIP section is fully booked tonight, but there's no Winters on the list. I'm sorry. I thanked her and stepped aside, trying to process this information. Aaron had lied to me. There was no plumbing issue, no canceled reservation. But why? Why make plans only to create a false excuse? I decided to take a quick look around before leaving. Perhaps there was some explanation I was missing. I made my way toward the bar area, which offered a view of the main dining room, as well as the elevated VIP section in the back. That's when I saw them. At the best table in the VIP section sat Erin Amanda and her parents. They were all dressed elegantly, laughing and raising champagne glasses in what appeared to be a toast. The table was covered with expensive dishes, the chef's tasting menu, which I knew cost more than I made in a day. I froze, partially hidden behind a large decorative column. They hadn't noticed me, and I found myself unable to move, unable to process what I was seeing. Aaron had lied to me, canceled our dinner plans, claimed the restaurant was closed, and here he was celebrating with the Blackwoods on my birthday. I should have left immediately. A wiser woman would have walked away with her dignity intact. But something kept me rooted to the spot, a need to understand just how deeply the betrayal went. From my position, I could hear snippets of their conversation as servers came and went from their table. "Aaron, darling, this Chateau Margaux is divine," Diana Blackwood was saying. "Richard, we should order a case for the summer house." "Absolutely," Richard agreed. "Aaron, you made the right call about tonight. Much more relaxing this way, isn't it?" Aaron nodded, swirling wine in his glass. "Definitely. The alternative would have been a very different evening." Amanda leaned closer to him, her voice carrying just enough for me to hear. "Did you have any trouble with the cancellation, any guilt trips?" My son, my own flesh and blood, laughed. "Not really. Said it was a plumbing emergency, quick and easy. And we're free from having to sit through another evening of insurance stories," Diana added with a smirk. "I swear if I had to hear about one more claim process." They all laughed, Aaron included. I felt physically ill watching my son mock me to impress his in-laws. "The best part," Amanda said, raising her glass again, "is that this lovely dinner is courtesy of Esther herself." My blood ran cold. What did she mean? Richard chuckled. "That birthday check you got last week?" Aaron nodded, looking slightly uncomfortable for the first time. "Yeah, she always sends me something. Usually I just deposit it, but this year it's funding our escape from an evening with her." Amanda finished giggling. "Poetic justice." They clinked glasses again, and I realized with horror that the money I'd sent Aaron as an early birthday gift, $300 I'd saved up a significant amount for me, was being used to pay for this very dinner, this celebration of excluding me. The room seemed to spin around me. I gripped the column for support, feeling as though I might collapse. The betrayal was complete, absolute. My son had taken my gift and used it to avoid spending time with me on my birthday. As I stood there fighting back tears, a server passed by carrying plates to another table. He noticed me and paused. "Ma'am, are you waiting for a table? Can I help you find your party?" I shook my head, unable to speak, afraid that if I opened my mouth, I would begin to sob. The server gave me a concerned look before continuing on his way. I needed to leave before they saw me, before I created a scene, before I completely fell apart in public. But as I turned to go, I heard Amanda's voice again, louder this time, loosened by alcohol. "To freedom from obligation," she toasted, "and to never having to pretend we enjoy Esther's company again." The others laughed, and I heard my son, my Aaron, whom I'd raised alone, sacrificed everything for, add, "She makes it so easy to cancel. She never questions anything, just goes back to her sad little routine." That was the moment something broke inside me. Not just my heart, which had been breaking slowly for years, but something deeper. My acceptance of being treated this way. A lifetime of putting others first, of making excuses for thoughtless behavior, of believing that love meant enduring mistreatment. It all shattered in that single instant. I straightened my shoulders, took a deep breath, and walked swiftly toward the restrooms, needing a moment to collect myself and decide what to do next. The ladies' restroom at Blackwood's was as elegant as the rest of the restaurant. Marble countertops, fresh flowers in small vases, plush hand towels instead of paper. I locked myself in a stall, my legs shaking so badly I had to sit down. The conversation I'd overheard kept replaying in my mind, each word cutting deeper than the last. I don't know how long I sat there trying to control my breathing, trying not to break down completely. 5 minutes. 10 times seemed to stretch and contract. Eventually I heard the bathroom door open and the voices of 2 women entering, chatting about someone's recent divorce. "Did you see that older woman by the column earlier?" one asked, looking completely lost. The one in the navy dress, yes, seemed out of place, poor thing. "Probably wandered in from the street," the first woman laughed. "Security should be more vigilant." They continued their conversation while applying lipstick, unaware that the older woman could hear every word. After they left, I finally emerged from the stall and faced myself in the mirror. My carefully applied makeup was smudged from wiping away tears. My hair, styled so hopefully this morning, had lost its volume. But what struck me most was the look in my eyes, a mixture of pain and something else, something that hadn't been there before. Anger. I had spent years making excuses for Aaron's behavior. He's busy with his career. He's adjusting to married life. He's trying to fit in with Amanda's family. I had accepted each slight, each cancellation, each dismissive comment, because that's what mothers do. We forgive. We understand. We put our children's needs before our own. But this wasn't about needs. Aaron didn't need to lie to me. He didn't need to mock me behind my back. He didn't need to use my birthday money to fund a dinner where they all laughed at my expense. Those were choices. Cruel, deliberate choices. As I fixed my makeup with steady hands, a plan began to form in my mind. Not a plan for revenge. I wasn't raised that way. But a plan to stand up for myself, to show Aaron and the Blackwoods that I wouldn't be discarded like an embarrassing old photograph. I remembered something important. James Blackwood, Amanda's older brother, managed this location of the family restaurant chain. Unlike the rest of the Blackwood family, James had always been kind to me. He'd gone out of his way at the wedding to make sure I was comfortable, even sitting with me for a while when everyone else was dancing. He'd mentioned once that he didn't always see eye to eye with his parents or sister about how to treat people. I took out my phone and scrolled through my contacts. I rarely called James, but I had his number from when he'd helped coordinate a small dinner for Aaron's birthday last year. I hesitated only briefly before pressing the call button. He answered on the third ring. "Hello, Esther. This is unexpected." "James, I'm sorry to bother you," I said, keeping my voice steady. "Are you at the restaurant right now?" "I am, actually. In my office. Is everything okay?" I took a deep breath. "Not really. I'm here too, in the ladies' room. I need to talk to you if you have a moment. It's important." There must have been something in my voice that conveyed the urgency, because he agreed immediately. "Of course. Meet me by the staff entrance near the kitchen in 5 minutes." I freshened up one last time, squared my shoulders, and left the restroom, careful to take a route that wouldn't pass by the VIP section. The staff area was quieter, the lighting dimmer. James was waiting, as promised, concern evident on his face. "Esther, what's going on? You look upset." I explained everything. The birthday dinner plans, Aaron's call canceling with the fake plumbing emergency, what I'd discovered and overheard. As I spoke, James's expression changed from concern to disbelief to anger. "They're using your money to pay for a dinner they specifically excluded you from on your birthday." His jaw tightened. That's beyond disrespectful. I didn't come to cause problems, I assured him. I don't know what to do. I don't want to create a scene, but I can't pretend this didn't happen. I can't keep allowing myself to be treated this way. James was quiet for a moment, thinking. You know, this isn't the first time I've seen them behave like this. Amanda and my parents. They've always had a certain way of viewing people they consider beneath them. The staff here have stories that would curl your hair. He looked at me directly. And I'm ashamed to say I've probably enabled it by staying silent too often. What should I do? James, just leave and pretend I never saw them? He shook his head. No. I think it's time someone taught them a lesson about respect, about consequences. A small smile appeared on his face. And I think I know how to do it without you having to say a word. James explained his idea, a simple but effective way to make a point without creating a dramatic confrontation. As he spoke, I felt something shift inside me. A weight, lifting, a strength returning. For the first time in years, I wasn't going to shrink away from uncomfortable situations. I wasn't going to prioritize Aaron's comfort over my own dignity. Are you sure about this? I asked when he finished explaining. They're your family. That's exactly why I'm sure, James replied firmly. Families should treat each other with love and respect. What they're doing to you isn't family behavior. He checked his watch. They've just ordered dessert. Perfect timing. While James went to set things in motion, I made 2 quick calls of my own. The first was to Dorothy, my old friend from Rosie's Diner days, who now ran her own small catering business. The second was to my neighbor Susan, who had been inviting me to her book club for years. Can you meet me at Lilac Cafe in about an hour? I asked them both. It's my birthday, and I could use some friendly faces. Both agreed immediately, no questions asked. That's what real support looks like, I realized. No conditions, no judgments, just being there. With those calls made, I moved to the position James had suggested, visible from the VIP section, but not obviously staring at their table. My heart was pounding, but I felt strangely calm. Whatever happened next, I would face it with the dignity I deserved, but had forgotten to demand. The restaurant's ambient lighting suddenly dimmed, and a spotlight illuminated the central area of the dining room. Conversations quieted as James stepped into the light, microphone in hand. Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. I hope you're enjoying your dining experience at Blackwoods. His professional voice carried throughout the restaurant. Tonight, we have a very special guest with us. Someone whose life has been defined by selflessness, hard work, and unconditional love. I could see Aaron and the Blackwoods at their table looking confused, but attentive. They hadn't noticed me yet. James continued, his voice warm. This remarkable woman worked 2 jobs as a single mother after losing her husband, never missing a single one of her son's school events despite her exhausting schedule. She put him through college and law school, often going without, so he could have opportunities she never had. I saw Aaron stiffen, his expression changing from confusion to dawning horror as he began to realize who James was talking about. Today is her birthday, James announced. A day when she should be celebrated, honored, and thanked for her years of sacrifice. Instead, she was lied to, excluded, and mocked by the very people who owe her the most gratitude. The spotlight swung over to where I stood. I heard gasps from several tables, but I kept my eyes on Aaron, whose face had gone pale. Amanda looked furious, while her parents appeared mortified at the public spectacle. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in wishing a happy birthday to Ms. Esther Winters, who is not only my friend, but one of the most dignified women I've had the privilege to know. The restaurant erupted in applause. People I'd never met were smiling at me, raising glasses, calling out birthday wishes. Several servers appeared with a small cake, candles lit. James walked over to me, microphone still in hand. Esther, is there anything you'd like to say? I hadn't planned to speak. The public acknowledgement was enough to make my point. But looking at my son's face, the shock, the shame, the realization of what he'd done, I found words coming naturally. Thank you, James. And thank you all for the kind wishes. My voice was steady, stronger than I expected. I've spent my life believing that love means sacrifice, that being a good mother means putting my child's happiness before my own. And I don't regret a single sacrifice I made for my son. I look directly at Aaron now. But I've learned something important tonight. Love without respect isn't love at all. It's exploitation. And I deserve better. The restaurant was completely silent now, every eye on me. I won't be staying for cake, I continued. I have plans with people who actually want to spend time with me. But before I go, I should mention one small business matter. I turned toward James. The bill for table 12 in the VIP section. I'd like to cancel the payment method on file. James nodded, understanding perfectly. Of course, Ms. Winters. Consider it done. Aaron half rose from his seat, his face ashen. Mom, I can explain. No need, I said, my voice calm but firm. Your actions have explained everything perfectly. Enjoy the rest of your evening. You'll need to find another way to pay for it. With that, I turned and walked toward the exit, head held high. The applause resumed, louder this time. I didn't look back, but I could imagine the scene at the table. Aaron and the Blackwoods, exposed and embarrassed, suddenly facing both a hefty bill and the judgment of an entire restaurant of witnesses. As I stepped outside into the cool evening air, I felt something unexpected: freedom. For years, I'd been chained to the hope of reclaiming my relationship with Aaron, willing to accept any crumbs of attention he offered. Tonight, I'd broken those chains. I got into my car and headed to Lilac Cafe, where Dorothy and Susan would be waiting. There would be real cake there, real conversation, real connection. And for the first time in years, I was looking forward to my birthday celebration. The next few hours were a blur of emotions and revelations. At Lilac Cafe, Dorothy and Susan had organized a small impromptu gathering. They'd brought cupcakes with candles, a hastily wrapped present, a beautiful scarf in my favorite shade of blue, and most importantly, their genuine affection and support. To Esther, Dorothy toasted with her coffee cup, who finally realized her own worth. We talked and laughed until nearly midnight. Neither of them pressed me for details about what had happened with Aaron, sensing I wasn't ready to discuss it fully. Instead, they shared stories from their own lives, updates on mutual friends, and plans for a weekend trip to a nearby lake that they insisted I join. By the time I arrived home, my phone had 17 missed calls and 12 text messages from Aaron. I didn't read or listen to any of them. Instead, I took a long bath, changed into comfortable pajamas, and slept better than I had in years. The following morning was Saturday. I woke early, made coffee, and sat on my small patio watching the sunrise. For the first time in recent memory, I didn't immediately check my phone to see if Aaron had called. I didn't feel that familiar ache of longing for connection with my son. Instead, I felt strangely peaceful. Around 9, the doorbell rang. I knew who it would be before I answered. Aaron stood on my porch looking disheveled and exhausted. His normally perfect hair was uncombed, his expensive shirt wrinkled as if he'd slept in it. His eyes were bloodshot and pleading. "Mom," he said, his voice cracking. "Please, can we talk?" I didn't invite him in immediately. "Is Amanda with you?" "No, she's—" He hesitated. "We had a fight last night, after what happened at the restaurant." I nodded, unsurprised. "I have coffee made. You can come in for 15 minutes. The time limit seemed to shock him. In the past, I would have welcomed him at any hour for any length of time, grateful for whatever attention he was willing to give me. Those days were over. In the kitchen, I poured him coffee without asking how he took it. I used to know, 1 sugar, no cream, but I realized I didn't know if his preferences had changed along with everything else about him. He took the mug with trembling hands. "Mom, I am so sorry. What you saw last night, what you heard, it was inexcusable." "Yes," I agreed simply. "It was." He seemed taken aback by my directness. "I don't even know how to explain it. I've been lost, I guess, trying to fit into Amanda's world, trying to be the person her family expects." "At my expense," I added. Aaron winced. "Yes. God, Mom, I don't know how I let things get so twisted. Using your birthday money for that dinner, Lying to you, it's unforgivable. And yet, you're here asking for forgiveness. He stared down at his coffee. I deserve that. I deserve your anger. What I did was cruel and thoughtless. It wasn't thoughtless, Aaron. That's what makes it worse. You thought about it. You planned it. You and Amanda and her parents deliberately excluded me and then laughed about it. Tears welled in his eyes. I know, and I hate myself for it. The look on your face last night when James called you out. I've never felt so ashamed in my life. I sipped my coffee studying my son. The boy I'd raised would never have behaved as he had. Somewhere along the way, that boy had been buried beneath layers of ambition, social climbing, and Amanda's influence. What do you want from this conversation, Aaron? He looked up, surprised by the question. I want to apologize. I want you to know how sorry I am. And then what? We pretend it never happened. Go back to you canceling plans and treating me like an obligation. Me accepting whatever scraps of attention you're willing to give. Aaron flinched. No, of course not. I want to make it up to you. I want to be better. Why? I asked simply. What do you mean, why? Why do you suddenly want to be better? Because you got caught? Because you were publicly embarrassed? Or because you genuinely regret the pain you've caused me for years now? He had no immediate answer. We sat in silence as the coffee grew cold between us. Finally, Aaron spoke, his voice quiet. I don't know who I am anymore, Mom. Last night, watching you walk out of that restaurant with your head held high, I saw the person I used to be so proud to call my mother. Strong, dignified, and I realized how far I've fallen from the values you taught me. More silence. I didn't rush to comfort him or ease his guilt. That would have been the old Esther. Amanda and her parents left me with the bill, he continued with a bitter laugh. Over $2,000. When I pointed out that they had invited me, that Richard had ordered the most expensive wine, they said a gentleman would handle it. I had to call a colleague to bring my backup credit card because the one I had was maxed out. I felt no sympathy. And now you've come to me because they showed their true colors. No, he said quickly. I mean, yes, their behavior was revealing, but that's not why I'm here. I'm here because I finally saw myself clearly last night. I saw what I've become, and I hated it. I studied my son's face, looking for signs of the boy I'd raised. He was in there somewhere beneath the designer clothes and practiced mannerisms. What do you want from me, Aaron? I asked again, more gently this time. A chance, he whispered. A chance to make things right. To be your son again. The son you deserve. I took a deep breath. I can't give you that chance today. Trust isn't rebuilt in a single conversation. It's rebuilt through consistent actions over time. I understand, he said, though his expression showed disappointment. What can I do? Just tell me where to start. I thought carefully before answering. First, I need space. Time to process everything that's happened. I've spent years making myself available whenever you could fit me in. That's over now. Aaron nodded, accepting this difficult truth. Second, I want you to take a hard look at your life, your marriage, your priorities. Not for me, for yourself. The Aaron I raised knew the difference between status and character. He valued integrity over appearances. And third, he asked when I paused. Third, when you've done the first two things, we can talk about moving forward. But I need you to understand something fundamental, Aaron. I will always love you. You will always be my son. But I will never again allow you to treat me with disrespect or make me feel less than. He wiped away tears. I promise, Mom. I'll do whatever it takes. Don't promise, I said firmly. Show me. Over time. When Aaron left 15 minutes later, exactly as I'd specified, I didn't know if our relationship could ever be repaired. The damage was deep, the trust thoroughly broken. But for the first time, I wasn't placing all my hopes on my son's validation. I wasn't defining my worth by his attention or approval. As I cleared away the coffee cups, I felt a strange sense of liberation. The previous night's public humiliation had been painful, but necessary. a catalyst for change in both our lives. Whatever happened next, I had reclaimed my dignity, and that was a birthday gift worth celebrating. The days following my birthday revelation passed in a strange haze of grief and liberation. I grieved for the relationship I had thought existed between my son and me, for the years spent chasing his approval and making excuses for his behavior. But alongside that grief ran a powerful current of freedom. Freedom from constantly checking my phone, from rearranging my schedule on the off chance Aaron might have time for me, from measuring my worth by his attention. At work, I focused with a new intensity that surprised my colleagues. I completed projects ahead of schedule, volunteered for a committee redesigning our customer service protocols, and even spoke up in meetings where I'd previously remained silent. My supervisor Janet pulled me aside after one particularly productive day. "Whatever's changed in your life, Esther, it suits you," she said with a smile. "You've seemed lighter these past couple weeks." "I've let go of some heavy baggage," I replied, surprising myself with the candor. Aaron kept his distance as I'd requested, though he sent a handwritten letter a week after our confrontation. Unlike the hollow birthday cards of recent years, this one contained 5 pages of reflection and apology. He wrote about specific moments when he'd failed me, acknowledged the countless sacrifices I'd made, and expressed genuine remorse without asking for immediate forgiveness. I read it twice, put it in my bedside drawer, and didn't respond. It was a start, but words needed to be followed by actions. Meanwhile, I began rebuilding a life that didn't revolve around my son's sporadic attention. I accepted Susan's invitation to join her book club, which met every Thursday evening in different members' homes. The 6 women welcomed me warmly, and I found myself engaged in stimulating discussions about literature, politics, and life in general. These were accomplished women, a retired professor, a pediatrician, a small business owner among them, who valued my insights and experiences. Dorothy introduced me to her community garden group, where I claimed a small plot and planted tomatoes, basil, and zinnias. Getting my hands in the soil proved therapeutic, a tangible reminder that growth requires both care and patience. On Saturdays, we would harvest whatever was ready and prepare meals together in Dorothy's spacious kitchen, laughing and sharing stories as we chopped and stirred. 3 weeks after the restaurant incident, James Blackwood called to check on me. "I heard through the grapevine that there's been quite a fallout in the family," he said. "Amanda's parents are furious about the public embarrassment. Apparently they've been getting cold shoulders at their country club." "I'm sorry if it's caused problems for you," I said, genuinely concerned. James laughed. "Don't be. I've spent years watching them treat staff and social inferiors with thinly veiled contempt. What happened that night was long overdue." He invited me to lunch the following week, a simple, friendly gesture that I accepted gratefully. Over sandwiches at a casual cafe, he shared that he was considering breaking away from the family business. "I've always wanted to open a small farm-to-table place, something more accessible, less pretentious," he confided. "Maybe this is the push I needed." Life has a way of providing those pushes when we need them most. I agreed, thinking of my own recent awakening. As May turned to June, I received periodic text messages from Aaron, not demanding responses, just brief updates or reminiscences. "Found my old baseball card collection in storage today. Remember how we used to go to those card shows every summer?" Or, "Passed by Rosie's Diner today and thought of you. The sign's different now, but the building's the same." I appreciated these small attempts to reconnect with our shared past, to remember the relationship we'd once had. I responded occasionally, briefly, but not unkindly. The most significant development came in early July, when my phone rang on a Sunday morning. Aaron's name appeared on the screen. "Mom," he said when I answered, his voice tight with emotion. "I need to tell you something important. Amanda and I are separating." I took a moment to process this news. "I'm sorry, Aaron. That must be difficult." "It's been coming for a while," he admitted. "What happened at your birthday was a symptom, not the cause. We've been living in her parents' world by their rules, and it's been suffocating." "Where are you staying?" I asked, the mother in me immediately concerned with practical matters. "I've rented a small apartment downtown. Nothing fancy." I'm actually sitting on a camping chair right now because I haven't bought furniture yet. He laughed, a genuine sound I hadn't heard in years. It's strange, but I feel like I can breathe for the first time in a long time. We talked for nearly an hour, our longest conversation in years. Aaron spoke about realizing how much he'd changed to fit Amanda's expectations, how he'd lost sight of his own values in the pursuit of status and connections. He'd started therapy, was reconsidering his career path at the high-pressure firm, had even reconnected with a few old friends from before his marriage. "I'd really like to see you, Mom," he said eventually. "When you're ready, no pressure." I considered his request carefully. "There's a cafe near the community garden where I volunteer on Saturdays. They make excellent scones. I'm usually there around 11. "This Saturday?" he asked, hope evident in his voice. "This Saturday," I confirmed. When we met, it was awkward at first. We sat across from each other like polite strangers, carefully navigating around the emotional landmines of our recent history. But as Aaron described his new apartment, his voice took on an enthusiasm I remembered from his childhood. "It's nothing special, but it's mine. I brought that quilt you made me in college. You know, the blue and gray one? It's on my bed now." That quilt had been packed away almost immediately after his marriage to Amanda, deemed too homemade-looking for their sophisticated decor. The fact that he'd retrieved it, was using it daily, seemed symbolic somehow. Over the next few months, we established a new rhythm. Saturday coffee became a regular occurrence. Sometimes we talked about serious matters: his ongoing divorce proceedings, his therapy insights, my growing independence. Other times we simply enjoyed each other's company, discussing books or movies, or sharing observations about life. By Thanksgiving, our relationship had transformed into something new. Not the intense mother-son bond of his childhood, not the strained, formal connection of his marriage years, but something healthier. A relationship between two adults who respected each other's boundaries while genuinely enjoying each other's company. I hosted a small Thanksgiving dinner that year. Erin Dorothy and her husband Susan from the book club, and James Blackwood, who had indeed left the family business and was in the process of opening his own restaurant. As we passed dishes around my modest dining table, I looked at the faces of these people who had become my chosen family, and felt a profound sense of gratitude. Later, as Aaron helped me wash dishes, he paused, hands deep in soapy water. "You know what I'm most thankful for this year?" he asked quietly. "What's that?" "That you didn't give up on me even when I deserved it. That you had the courage to stand up for yourself that night at the restaurant." He turned to face me, his eyes sincere. "You saved me from becoming someone I would have hated, Mom. You showed me what real strength looks like." I reached out and squeezed his soapy hand. "We saved each other, I think." And that was the truth. By finally valuing myself enough to set boundaries, to demand respect, I had not only reclaimed my own dignity, but had also given my son the opportunity to find his way back to his authentic self. The journey wasn't over. Trust rebuilds slowly, and old patterns can reassert themselves in moments of stress or fatigue. But we were both committed to the process, to creating a relationship based on mutual respect rather than obligation or guilt. As December arrived and holiday decorations appeared throughout the neighborhood, I found myself looking forward rather than back. For years, I had defined myself primarily as Aaron's mother, measuring my worth by his success, his attention, his approval. Now I was rediscovering all the other aspects of my identity: friend, colleague, gardener, book lover, community volunteer. My son was an important part of my life, but no longer its center. And paradoxically, this healthy distance had brought us closer than years of my desperate attempts to maintain connection. Sometimes the greatest act of love is setting someone free, including yourself. I sit on my patio now, watching the autumn leaves scatter across my small but well-tended garden. It's been 6 months since that fateful birthday night that changed everything. 6 months of healing, of rediscovery, of building a life that feels authentically mine for the first time in decades. The early weeks were the hardest. Despite my brave front at the restaurant, despite the liberation I felt walking away with my head held high, there were nights I cried myself to sleep. 30 years of maternal identity doesn't dissolve overnight. I questioned myself constantly. Had I been too harsh? Too dramatic? Would Aaron ever truly understand why I'd taken such a public stand? My support system proved invaluable during those difficult days. Dorothy would bring over casseroles and listen without judgment as I cycled through grief, anger, and uncertainty. Susan loaned me books on setting boundaries and rebuilding self-worth after emotional neglect. James called regularly with updates on his restaurant plans, deliberately giving me something positive to focus on beyond my family drama. Slowly, painfully, I began to heal. Each time I declined to answer Aaron's call immediately, each time I made plans that didn't revolve around his schedule, each time I spoke up in a work meeting or suggested an outing with my new friends, I reclaimed a piece of myself that had been submerged in maternal self-sacrifice. 3 months after the restaurant confrontation, I took a significant step. I enrolled in a community college photography course. Photography had been my passion before marriage, before motherhood, before survival mode took over my life. The feel of a camera in my hands again awakened dormant parts of my creativity. My first assignment was a self-portrait. I struggled with it, uncomfortable being both subject and artist. My instructor, a kind woman in her 60s, suggested I photograph my reflection rather than setting up a traditional portrait. The image I captured, my face reflected in the window of a downtown building overlaid with the city life behind the glass, won an honorable mention in a local exhibition. Dual Existence, I titled it. A perfect metaphor for the woman I was becoming. Aaron's journey paralleled mine in many ways. After moving out of the luxury condo he'd shared with Amanda, he rented a modest one-bedroom apartment in a diverse neighborhood downtown. He traded his luxury car for a practical hybrid. Most significantly, he requested a transfer within his firm, moving from corporate law to their pro bono division, taking a substantial pay cut, but finding more meaning in the work. I realized something, he told me during one of our Saturday coffee meetings. All those years working 80-hour weeks to afford the lifestyle Amanda expected, I was miserable. Now I make half as much, but I'm helping people who really need it. I sleep better. Our relationship evolved gradually. We established new traditions: Saturday morning coffee, a monthly movie night, occasional cooking experiments in my kitchen. We also established clear boundaries. I no longer dropped everything when Aaron called. He no longer assumed I would be available on his schedule. We both acknowledged when old patterns threatened to reassert themselves. The most profound conversation came after Aaron's divorce was finalized. We sat in my living room sharing a bottle of wine and talking about the future. I keep thinking about all those years I wasted, he said, staring into his glass, trying to impress people who were never going to respect me no matter what I achieved or acquired. It wasn't entirely wasted, I countered. You learned important lessons. Sometimes we need to walk the wrong path before we recognize the right one. Aaron looked up, his eyes damp. How did you get so wise, Mom? I laughed softly. The hard way. The only way anyone ever does. He hesitated, then asked the question that had clearly been on his mind. Do you think you'll ever fully forgive me for how I treated you all those years? I considered this carefully. Forgiveness isn't a single moment, Aaron. It's a process. There are days I feel complete forgiveness, and days when the hurt resurfaces. What matters is that we're both committed to a healthier relationship now. I think about that night at the restaurant often, he admitted. How you must have felt hearing us laugh at your expense, using your gift to exclude you. He shook his head, shame evident in his expression. I don't know how you found the strength not to scream at us, not to make a scene. Making a scene would have played into their narrative about me, I explained. Being dignified in the face of cruelty was more powerful. I have James to thank for understanding that. James had indeed become an unexpected ally and friend. His new restaurant, Harvest Table, had opened the previous month with a mission to provide high-quality, locally sourced meals at accessible prices. He'd hired several former Blackwoods employees who had suffered under the family's demanding, often demeaning management style. I attended the opening night, proudly taking photos that appeared on the restaurant's website and social media. Richard and Diana Blackwood were notably absent from their son's new venture. According to James, they considered his restaurant concept beneath the family name and had essentially cut him off socially, though they couldn't touch his inheritance. Amanda stood with her parents unsurprisingly. The Blackwood family closing ranks against those who challenged their values was entirely predictable. Aaron visited Harvest Table often, sometimes meeting clients there, other times just stopping in for lunch and a chat with James. An unexpected friendship had developed between the two men, both recovering from the toxic influence of the Blackwood family values. My own social circle continued to expand in ways that surprised and delighted me. Through the photography course, I met Elena, a retired nurse with a passion for street photography. We began taking urban photo walks together, capturing the overlooked beauty of city life. Through Dorothy, I joined a monthly potluck dinner group that rotated between members' homes, sharing recipes and life stories. The book club remained a Thursday highlight, with discussions often lasting well into the night. These women, all in their 50s and 60s, had navigated career changes, empty nests, divorces, health scares, and reinventions. Their wisdom and humor provided both perspective and inspiration. Work took on new dimensions as well. Janet, my supervisor, encouraged me to apply for a team lead position when it opened up in September. To my surprise, I got the job. After 30 years of keeping my head down doing my work without complaint, but also without ambition, I found myself leading a team of 7, implementing new procedures, speaking confidently in department meetings. "You should have been in leadership years ago," Janet commented during my first performance review in the new role. "You have a natural talent for it." "I wasn't ready before," I replied honestly. "Sometimes we need to find ourselves before we can effectively lead others." As autumn deepened and the holidays approached, I faced another milestone, hosting Thanksgiving dinner at my house. In previous years, I'd either been excluded from Aaron and Amanda's plans, or included as an afterthought, seated at the end of the Blackwoods' massive dining table, like a charity case. This year, I sent invitations to Erin Dorothy and her husband Susan Elena from my photography class, and James. A family of choice, Susan called it when she RSVP'd. The morning of Thanksgiving, I woke early and smiled at the realization that I felt only anticipation, not anxiety. I wasn't worrying whether my home was impressive enough, whether my cooking would meet some arbitrary standard, whether I would say the wrong thing and face subtle ridicule. These were people who accepted me as I was, who valued me for my authentic self. I spent the day cooking family recipes, my grandmother's cornbread stuffing my mother's cranberry sauce, a pumpkin pie from scratch. Aaron arrived early to help chopping vegetables and setting the table with the mismatched china I'd collected over the years. We worked together comfortably, sharing stories and laughter. When everyone gathered around my table that evening, I looked at each face and felt a profound sense of gratitude. These relationships were built on mutual respect and genuine affection, not obligation or social climbing. This was what true connection felt like. After dinner, as we lingered over coffee and pie, James raised his mug in a toast. To Esther, who taught us all about dignity, resilience, and the courage to demand respect. Everyone echoed the toast, and I felt my cheeks flush with emotion. "I have something to share," I said when the moment felt right. "I've decided to retire from Harmony Insurance next spring." Aaron looked surprised. "Really, Mom? What are you planning to do?" "Well, Janet has asked me to stay on part-time as a consultant during the transition," I explained. "And James has offered me the position of official photographer for Harvest Table's marketing." James grinned. "Her work is exceptional. I'm getting a professional at friend prices." "And," I continued, "I've applied to teach a beginner's photography workshop at the community center." The table erupted in congratulations and questions. As I shared my plans for this new chapter, I realized how far I'd come from the woman who had stood hidden behind a column at Blackwood's heartbreaking as she overheard her son's betrayal. That woman had defined herself by her role as Aaron's mother, had measured her worth by his attention and approval. She had accepted disrespect and exclusion, believing she deserved no better. She had shrunk herself to avoid inconveniencing others. The woman I had become, the woman I was still becoming, knew her value wasn't determined by anyone else's assessment. She had boundaries. She had passions. She had a voice. Most importantly, she had the courage to use it. Later, as the evening wound down and guests began to depart, Aaron helped me load the dishwasher. "I'm proud of you, Mom," he said softly. "These retirement plans, they're perfect for you." "Thank you," I replied, accepting his compliment without deflection. Another new habit I was cultivating. "You know," he continued, wiping a plate, "I keep thinking about what you said that day in your kitchen right after everything happened, about trust being rebuilt through consistent actions over time." He placed the plate in the rack carefully. "Do you think, are we rebuilding it? Our trust?" I stopped what I was doing and looked at my son. Really looked at him. The designer clothes and carefully styled hair were gone, replaced by comfortable jeans and a slightly rumpled button-down. The practiced smile and networking persona had given way to genuine expressions and authentic conversation. He was becoming the man I'd always hoped he would be, not because of his career achievements or social connections, but because of his character. "Yes, Aaron," I said, squeezing his hand. "We're rebuilding it day by day, and it's stronger now because we're both doing the work." As the last guest departed and I closed the door behind them, I felt a sense of peace that had eluded me for years. The journey of the past 6 months had been painful at times, exhilarating at others. I had lost some things, illusions mostly, and gained much more self-respect, authentic connections, renewed purpose. Sometimes the hardest decisions lead to the greatest growth. Sometimes standing up for yourself means standing alone, at least temporarily. And sometimes the most powerful word in any relationship is simply enough. I look around my modest home filled with the lingering warmth of good food and better company, and know with absolute certainty that I have not just survived this transformation, I have flourished within it. The woman who walked out of Blackwood's restaurant on her birthday, head held high despite her breaking heart, could never have imagined the rich, authentic life waiting on the other side of that painful moment. So what about you? Have you ever had to set a difficult boundary with someone you love? How did it change your relationship? Remember to share your stories in the comments below. And if this resonated with you, please like and subscribe to hear more stories of resilience and self-discovery. Thank you for listening to my journey, and remember, it's never too late to reclaim your dignity and build the life you deserve.